Yeah. Yeah. I think it'll be great. I'm happy that it's continuing after.
Yeah.
I'm really happy. I think that we have a lot to celebrate and it shouldn't just end bruh,
Yeah,
one
yeah.
day.
And
You
it's
know what I
nice
mean?
that it's going into one of the things I wanted to go and take on to was the Patriot. You saw that? Where they were the art think Millefleur
Yes, yes,
and
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I
Yeah.
hope I don't know if it's still
I'm
on, but I'd like to go and see
Well, if
that
you
as well.
find out, I'll be happy to see
Yeah,
it too.
yeah.
I hope that it continues at least for a week
Yeah,
or more so that
yeah.
more people. And the schools, that school is opening
On next week.
Monday.
Next week Monday.
That they leave it up for the
Yeah, for
schools,
schools,
to
yeah.
participate and so.
And also, let me, as we at it, let me congratulate Mr. Reginald Vidal and his group.
Yes.
Yesterday was the inaugural award ceremony and induction for the National Steel Band Heroes Hall of Fame.
Right.
And there were a number of inductees, amongst them Eddie Hart,
Yes, yes.
Mr. Dupree, and many and quite a few others. You know, so congratulations to all the inductees. I'll get the list, and probably we could talk about it.
And there's
later.
another one in that there were a few people, including your boy, Papa.
Papi was one of the people honored as well, inducted.
I talk about Nelson.
Who Nelson?
Yeah. Nelson. Lord Nelson.
Right.
There was an award given to Lord Nelson. He, and I'm going to give it to you quickly. I don't know. Let me tell you where it is. Yeah. Huey gave doctorates to Lord Nelson, and Rosalind Gabriel got
Okay.
honorary doctorates from Huey as well. Both deserving.
Yeah, man.
You know?
All right, so we talk about that. We're getting
Yeah,
ready.
when
We're
we
getting
come back.
set, yeah, for the TTBS, the Bureau of Standards, where we'll be talking standards here on I95 with folks from TTBS. So keep it locked. We will be back right after this.
The following is intended to address the need for greater safety in the design, construction, and installation of manual and automatic sliding gates. 1. Install a safety post. A safety post prevents falling or toppling if the gate comes off its track. 2. Check your safety stop. A safety stop prevents the gate traveling past its fully open position, which can result in falling or toppling. 3. Conduct regular checks on your gate to ensure it rolls or slides smoothly. For further information, check the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards website at www.gottbs.com or call 662-8827.
Right, good afternoon and welcome. Just 29 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock, and it's time for the TTBS, where we are talking standards. And with me this afternoon is Miss Nika. Say it again.
Nkechi.
Nkechi Williams. And she's a standards officer, and we have the public relation assistant, Mr. Kirk Bhajan. Mr. Bhajan, good afternoon, welcome to you. And we have via our Facebook Live, we have Nadita, and I believe she's on. Nadita, let me make sure I'm hearing you properly. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes. So, Nadita, are you on? Hello.
Yes, do you hear me?
I'm hearing you loud and clear. We're hearing you,
Great.
and the folks on Facebook have the absolute pleasure of seeing you. Our radio audience can, but our folks on Facebook can, in fact, see you. All right. So, let's get right into it, and the first one comes to you, Nadita, because that you know what I mean, bowling the first ball at you. What is the TTBS, the Trinidad Bureau of Standards mandate? Remind us.
Okay, so TTBS, we are the national standards body in the country, and we operate under the Standards Act number 18 of 1997. So this allows us to do several activities. Foremost, we are the national standards body, and we are responsible for developing, promoting, maintaining standards. And these standards are developed for several reasons. So, for the improvement of goods produced or used in the country, to ensure industrial efficiency and development, to promote public and industrial welfare, health, and safety. And also, we develop standards that are aimed at protecting the environment. So, one key point to note is that our mandate does not cover food, drugs, or cosmetics and medical devices. And these products are under the purview of the Chemistry, Food, and Drugs Division, which is under the Ministry of Health. So, in a nutshell, we have the responsibility for developing, promoting, and enforcing standards as well for the country.
All right, so as you say that, let me ask you this. What is a standard?
Okay, so could be understood very simply. It is a agreed way of doing something. So it can provide specifications for a product or service. And the key part of a standard is having technical requirements or precise criteria to be used as rules, guidelines, or to define the characteristics of products or services or even processes and materials. So we want to ensure that these products and services are fit for the intended purpose. So someone may ask, what is a standard in a general way? And we have standards that cover product requirements. We also have standards that take the form of codes. And one well-known example would be the electrical wiring code. We also have documents that are guidelines or guidance documents. And so, for example, we are working on some national standards for governance of organizations. And this is where through the standard, you can share best practice. And we also have standards that can take the form of test methods. So, for example, if you want to test whether a particular chemical is in a product, we would have a test method. Or if you want to check the strength of a material, you can use a test method. So, standards take several different shapes and forms, but the key point is that they have to be developed using consensus. So, generally, we get technical experts that would come together and help us create these standards, and they have to agree upon the content. So we're looking at sharing best practice or ensuring that the technical requirements are fit for purpose and are technically robust as well.
All right, that's excellent. Now, what types of standards does the TTBS, the Bureau of Standards, Trinidad Bureau of Standards, develop?
Well, let me turn that one over to Nkechi. She is currently acting as the manager of standardization, so she's well poised to take this question.
All right, Nkechi.
So thank you, Nadita. So we developed two types of standards, voluntary and compulsory standards. So for the voluntary standards, these are documents that are not enforced by law, right? But these documents can be used by anyone. For example, when Nadita spoke about using them as guidelines, it could be requirements that organizations may decide to apply to their processes. But something to note for voluntary standards is that if a voluntary standard is referenced in law, then it becomes enforceable. So we have voluntary standards, and the other type of standards, we have a compulsory standards. And these are standards that are declared by the Minister of Trade and Industry, and it is declared compulsory status according to Section 8 of the Standards, Section 18 of the Standards Act. So, so those are the two types of standards we have, voluntary and compulsory.
All right, fantastic. Who develops standards?
Nadita.
That sounds almost like, it almost sounds a little bit redundant. That's, we talk about TTBS developing standards.
Yes, and Nadita kind of touched on it a little bit, because Nadita spoke about the TTBS developing standards with a cross-section of stakeholders, right? So it's not, and that's the thing, people think TTBS, we are the ones responsible for the content of the standard. We are the ones managing the process. So the content of the standard, we look to our stakeholders to inform that process. So it's not just us sitting down in a room writing requirements on our own. We look to government agencies, academia, we go to the private sector, and we ask them for their input within the standards process. And they actually assist with formalizing the final document before the standard is declared.
All right. Now, why are standards important though?
So standards are important because they form the fundamental building block for product development. It establishes a consistent protocol that can be universally understood and adopted. So standards are developed as documents that could protect the consumer. So for example, when you have a standard, right, it ensures that a product is delivered the delivery of a product is as specified in terms of what its function, what the function supposed to, it performs as it is supposed to perform, it's reliable, it's durable, it's safe. So standards assist in...
But shouldn't that be products and practices? Because while some of the standards are applied to products, some of the standards also apply to practices, aren't they?
To services, yes.
Right.
So it also ensures, that you can offer a certain level of service to your clientele.
Right.
We have management system standards as well, where it looks at how you set up your organization and making sure that the service that you provide is efficient and effective.
Right.
Yes.
All right, good. Now, we want to do a recap of the standards that we looked at over the last couple of weeks. And we started with the driveway gates, which is a voluntary standard. So I want to turn over to Mr. Bhajan to to give us that recap.
Right, so the driveway gates, at the time, there were a lot of injuries, gates falling on people, accidents and so forth. So that was the thrust to promote the standard on driveway gates. And we want to really reach out to the public to follow three main instructions that would help, safety guidelines that would help them, right? I'm going to say it once here now and I'll repeat it again. So install a safety post. The safety post prevents falling or toppling if the gate comes off the track. Check to make sure there's a safety stop. The safety stop, of course, prevents the gate from traveling past the fully open position so that it wouldn't fall. And also to conduct regular checks, ensure that there's no debris in the track and the gate rolls smoothly. Now the standard itself, to go back to explain the standard a bit, the driveway gate standard covers the minimum requirements for driveway gates. The standard also specifies requirements for the design, fabrication, finishes and installation. It also outlines the specific safety features to be incorporated as a means to mitigate against failure during operation, which I just outlined there. It applies to manual and automatic gates, sliding and swing gates, and gates of a maximum length of 20 feet. What it does not cover are gates designed primarily for pedestrian use, roller shutter doors and gates, bifold or multifold swing gates, security barriers used for controlling vehicular access, and sliding gates with sloping tracks. And the intended stakeholders of this driveway gate standard are gate designers, fabricators, engineers, anyone in the construction professional, and regulatory agencies, consumers, property owners, and homeowners. And again, I'm going to repeat the three because this is the main thing that everyone could look at their driveway gate to ensure that, okay, is there a safety post? Is there a safety stop? Is the track clear?
Right. Yeah. Because any of these things can result in a gate malfunctioning or falling, toppling over, whatever. So once your gate has these things, you're kind of on the right track.
Correct.
Right. All right. So then the next thing we covered, another voluntary standard, was the small building code. Now, when we say small building, what are we referring to in particular?
We are referring to single or multifamily residential buildings. Buildings that are not more than 2 stories, and buildings with a gross floor area of 300 square meters. So that's the
The definition.
yes.
Right. And the code is meant to ensure safety in construction. What other things is meant to ensure?
Yes, so it covers design and construction, foundation, columns, beams, walls, floors, roofs, structural integrity, occupancy, health, safety. And it also outlines mitigation measures to minimize the impacts of hurricanes, earthquakes, and flooding.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're now in the hurricane season and flood season, as we saw up to last week.
Yes.
So it's important to pay attention to these kinds of. So let me ask you something. People who live in flood-prone areas, should they access this standard to see what might be the best
Yes.
way to construct their home in the area that they're in?
Yes, we would definitely encourage that, because within the standard outlines some of the general requirements. I mean, as I mentioned, the foundation, so it's
Right.
important to make sure that your foundation is, that's the basis on which your building is set. So your floor system, your roofing system, when we talk about hurricanes, so we definitely encourage, because the standard was developed with the intent of not only the persons within the design and construction area, but for homeowners to
as
also
well.
Yes.
All right, to have
right,
a-
for
to
them
have
to
some
have
knowledge.
Yes, for them to have some knowledge of how their building should be constructed.
All right, and the next thing we're going to touch on are cleaning and disinfecting products, and these are proposed compulsory standards. So that means because this is still in process.
Yes, it is.
And once completed, these standards will be compulsory, mandatory, means that
Enforceable.
all right, enforceable.
Enforceable.
Very
yes.
good. Right, and that has to do with cleaning products, bleaches, and so forth. Yeah.
Right. So, again, we want listeners to just know a little bit about the standard. Again, we're doing a little recap, and everyone uses cleaning products.
Right.
We need that. That's part of the household shopping
Routine,
list.
yeah.
Yes. So the standard covers different products, and some of them include general purpose cleaners, disinfectants, laundry detergent sheets and pellets, hand washing detergents, automatic dishwasher detergents, engine degreasers, automotive cleaners, spotter stain removers, aerosols, and sanitizers not designed for human application. Right? So these are some of the products that fall under this standard, this proposed compulsory standard. Right? The standard includes chemical requirements for the protection of the environment, and it also contains labeling requirements. Labeling is very, very important.
Yeah.
And some of the requirements, I'm going to list a few of them as well. So, name and address of the manufacturer, net quantity, all active ingredients, instructions for use, batch number, storage conditions, and first aid instructions. And these are just a few of the labeling requirements that are found in the standard.
And is it, once it becomes compulsory, would it also be compulsory that those labels be in English?
Yes.
Yes. So, and again, so it is currently in the public comment period. So that means persons can stakeholders, both public, private institutions, individuals, they have the opportunity to submit their comments on this draft standard. The deadline is September 12th.
Yes.
Right. And of course, comments could be submitted to TTBS through the website at www.gottbs.com or email to the standard officer, who is Beverly Monroe, right? Beverly Monroe at ttbs.org.tt. So we encourage persons to engage during this public comment period before it is, and those comments, it would then be reviewed by the advisory committee who developed the standard and then submitted to the TTBS Board of Directors for approval.
All right. And then, of course, the other standard that we dealt with was the beach operation, another voluntary standard.
Yes.
That
was just declared.
Yeah, it has been declared. So it is now a standard.
It's a yes.
All right. Are there works engaged to make some of those standards, if not all, compulsory or enforceable?
Meaning the beach operation?
The beach operations.
Not for the beach operations at this time, but we are we're trying to reach out to the different agencies, right, and get their interest in for them to apply, yes, and apply these standards. At least start the process of applying these standards to those beaches that are managed, right? So, as mentioned in one of the earlier sessions that we had, this standard was requested by the Tobago House of Assembly, and it was the intent at that time that they were going to use the requirements within the standard to establish some of the beaches that they have in Tobago. So we are hoping that the same is done in Trinidad. So we would be reaching out to the Ministry of Tourism and the local government to tell them the standard has been declared, and we would be willing to have some sort of collaboration with them as it relates to using the standard and letting the standard be.
All right. Now, these standards, the beach operations in particular, how can they be useful to the general public?
So for the general public, the standard, so some of the requirements within the standard speaks to having signage, so proper signage. And for the general public, signage is important. You need signage as it relates to code of conduct, safety information, health, not only safety information, but first aid. For example, if there is any sort of accident on the beach, you would want to know
who to reach out to,
right? Who to reach out to. Signage as it relates to whether there are lifeguards on the beaches, right? Also, the standard speaks about having your flags, your beach safety flags on the beach. Signage for the regular beach user to understand what it means when you see a red flag, when you see a yellow flag, when you see a mix of the red and yellow. Those things are very important for the beach user. All
right. No, I was gonna.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at the Facebook feed, and I see somebody is asking a question. What about the quality of products that are imported into the country? Does the TTBS have any rule with respect to that?
So I could start and then Nadita could take over. So as mentioned, we develop standards for different sorts of products, except food, drugs, and cosmetics. So it's according to what product the person is speaking to specifically. But yes, we have some compulsory product standards that we enforce, and we do some sort of inspection activities when they are imported into the country.
All right, good. That is good to hear. Is there, I know with locally produced products, there is a mark that would let a user know that this particular product meets quality standards? There's a TTBS mark, isn't there not?
Yes, there is a TTBS mark, so that is the mark is not seen on all products, but for those products that we have a certification program established, there is a certification mark that are placed on the local products, and that certification mark allows the consumer or to know that this standard has met the requirements. This product,
Product has
sorry,
met.
has met the requirements of the standard.
But
So
all
the
right.
mark.
Okay, so but you say it's not applicable to all products. Well, we already have the disclaimer for food, drug, and
So yes, so it's not applicable for all products, but also remember we have voluntary standards and compulsory standards. So for the certification mark, we have some voluntary certification schemes, right, where the manufacturer can decide whether or not they want to develop their product
according to
according to
certain
the
standards.
standard. And then we have some compulsory certification schemes that means that it's mandatory for the manufacturer to develop their standard according to
No.
develop their product, sorry, according to standard.
I know from the discussions before we talked about, like for example, building bricks would be one of the things that you all, right, have
Yes,
a,
so-
a certification for. What are some of the other products
So Nadita,
that Nadita?
Nadita will be able
Yeah.
to.
What are some of the other products, Nadita, that the TTBS has certification for in Trinidad and Tobago?
Okay, so we have liquid chlorine bleach as well as roofing sheets,
Right.
hollow clay blocks. We are looking at cement as well. And there are some additional products that mandatory product certification schemes will be developed for. Now, one of the most topical issues right now would be that of ready mix concrete. We're actually developing a compulsory standard for that. And I just wanted to touch on, in terms of the general question, in terms of the quality of products coming in, the need to regulate the products is really based on the health, safety, environmental impact. So, to start off with, we have general labeling standards, and this would be like our first level of assessment for products. And of course, we have that exclusion where food and drugs would be covered by the CFDD, but we look at labeling first for all products in general, and then depending on the risk associated with the products. For example, electrical appliances, we have a number of compulsory standards. For the construction sector, we also have a number of standards. We have standards that cover plywood, concrete blocks, cement, steel bars. So this is carbon steel bars. So quite a number of products that deal with the construction sector because of the link to building safety. A lot of compulsory standards also exist for consumer products, and Kirk would have mentioned the cleaning and disinfectant products. And this particular draft standard is actually replacing three existing compulsory standards that we have already. So we have cleaning chemicals, we have automotive products as well. Tires would be significant for the TTBS, especially in the context of used tires and the need to ensure road safety. So we have quite a number of standards that are covered by specific product standards, and the way we look at this category of products would be based on the risk. So if there's a risk to the consumer, to the user, I should also mention that we have some standards that cover safety of toys, especially because of the impact on children, like
Right.
toxic chemical in products, or you know children can also put the toys in their mouth and it becomes a choking hazard. And these are some of the risks we're trying to mitigate. So, in terms of responding to the caller, if there's any particular product that is not performing or it is creating some type of safety risk, please let us know, because we are looking at how we can ensure that the health, safety, environment is protected. And the way we do that would be through the compulsory standards. And this is why we have inspection schemes for these products at the ports of entry and in the market. And for the local manufacturers, well, we have a fairly vibrant construction sector, so a lot of local production and a lot of chemical products being produced locally as well. And this is where we would have our certification schemes. So we encourage persons to take a look at the mark. And as Nkechi indicated, it is not every single product that has been manufactured locally that we would have a product certification scheme for. But where there's a direct risk that we are aware of, and if there is a particular product that is creating some type of hazard or causing some type of injury to persons,
Okay.
persons could let us know,
Yeah.
and we would evaluate the situation. So electrical safety is one of our key areas, construction, consumer safety, as
All
well
right.
as, some of the environmental risk as well.
Okay. I want to open the phone lines. We have just about 4 minutes left. If you have any questions for either Nkechi, Mr. Bhajan, or Nadita, feel free to call us. 622-3937 is the number. We're talking standards, and we recapped some of the standards we examined over the last couple of weeks: driveway gate safety, small building code, and cleaning and disinfecting products. We have a caller on the line. Good afternoon. Welcome to you. Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. You know, when I hear these programs on the radio, I find this song so fabulous and so well-meaning, and that is how a country should be, with all these checks and balances. And you go out there and the reality is totally different. You purchase something and you would tell the people, well, look at how this, they would first tell you to go to the Bureau of Standards. You understand? Well, don't ask for town and country planning. That don't exist. Neighbors encroaching, neighbors doing what they want. I bought some bricks recently, and I don't know how in heaven's name that passed any kind of standards to be sold to the general public. So it always sounds so nice when these ladies come out there and they articulate everything, and we watch this and we watch that. Nothing of this sort when you go out there in the real world. Thank you.
All right. But what callers have to remember is that not every complaint needs to be directed to the Bureau of Standards. Am I correct?
Yes, so that's why next week, of course, we're going to do this will be the last session that we have for now, and there we could probably call it knocking on the right doors to
Right.
find out what falls under the Bureau's purview,
right.
Consumer Affairs Division, all these sort of things. But the thing about it is that what we really want to do, and one of the aim of this whole promotional activity on the radio on I95 was to help create a standards conscious society.
Yeah.
Everyone plays a part in that. And a standard only has value if it is applied. And that's the thing. So people have to understand, persons, whether they are stakeholders in institutions, organizations, general public, you have to understand the benefits of standards, the value of participating in the standards development process, especially when we spoke about the public comment period, and then the value of applying standards in our daily lives. And it's only by doing this, by trying to reach out to persons in this promotional activity in this form, on radio, social media, in the news, that people create this quality conscious culture. And a culture is not an overnight thing.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
We have a final call. I want to take this call. Hello, good up. Oops, sorry, the person left us before I took the call. But it's 4 o'clock. It's time for News Center 5. But, well, almost for 1 minute to the hour. And I'd like to give Nadita the opportunity to wrap things up and let folks know that we will be back next week, and we'll be doing, as Mr. Bhajan said, we'll be doing a session called Knocking on the Right Doors. So you know who door to go and knock on. Don't knock on my door when it's the neighbor you want. Right. So, Nadita?
Well, John, the caller raised a very important question, and TTBS has its responsibilities, but we all have our responsibilities. So we don't have a culture of reporting and complaining properly. So we have our complaints handling system at TTBS. So if the caller is aware of any direct contravention of a standard or compulsory standard, the first step would be to let us know. And we also have a collaboration with Consumer Affairs. So next week we'll hear more about that. So sometimes we don't know what is the right mechanism. So we're trying to provide the best information in terms of standards. We have a responsibility as TTBS to enforce those requirements. And if there are critical failures in the marketplace, we encourage that those issues be reported to us so that we can investigate. So where we have compulsory standards, we do take these complaints very seriously. And we have done a lot of work with consumer affairs in terms of assessing products on the marketplace and looking at those consumer issues. So I encourage everyone to, follow us on our social media and report the complaints through our official channels. And we have a whole page dedicated to complaints as well.
And of
So
course,
thank you for the opportunity.
and to tune in next week next week we'll be dealing with knocking on the right doors. I want to say thank you to Nadita, to Nkechi, and to Mr. Bhajan. Thank you for coming and sharing the information. And until
Thank
next
you.
week, when we will be back talking standards again.
The following is intended to address the need for greater safety in the design, construction, and installation of manual and automatic sliding gates. 1. Install a safety post. A safety post prevents falling or toppling if the gate comes off its track. 2. Check your safety stop. A safety stop prevents the gate traveling past its fully open position, which can result in falling or toppling. 3. Conduct regular checks on your gate to ensure it rolls or slides smoothly. For further information, check the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards website at www.gottbs.com or call 662-8827.